Welcome back to Green Disruptors, Scaling the Future, where we explore the innovations and leaders shaping a more sustainable world and how overcoming challenges to scale can improve the impact of these companies. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Helge Biernath, CEO of Sunstall. We're diving into the evolution of solar energy, how innovations like vertical solar are creating new opportunities for industries like agriculture, and why thinking beyond just electrons could be the key to a more sustainable future. Let's jump in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Green Disruptors. This podcast is brought to you by Mountaintop Social Marketing. We help green tech companies scale. And today we get to have an interesting conversation about some innovations in the solar industry. And so I have the pleasure of having Helge Biernath on with me today, and he is the CEO of Sunstall. So welcome, Helge.
Thank you, Megan, for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's start, and I want to hear a little bit about your background and how you've kind of taken some of the influences from where you're from and brought them over to the US.
So I had the pleasure to start in the solar industry like in 2001. One of the gentlemen I worked for, he had the idea that we should diversify, and so he came up with the idea of getting into solar thermal, which was kind of the driving force back in the days. We're talking about, again, 2001. PV was, yeah, used for NASA and some other folks, but not really on scale. And I think 2002, 3, Germany had the feed-in tariff, which then really, kickstarted the whole development. So we were focusing on solar, but on the thermal side, for hotels, for obviously warm water applications, from floor heating to just warm water heating for dishwashers, washing machines, and all kinds of stuff. So we were developing a solar collector, and we sold it from Spain to England, across the European continent. And yeah, so that was my segue into the solar industry. Back in the days, I was obviously following what the PV folks were doing, and obviously they were getting bigger and bigger fast with all the money pouring into the industry, and they developed more and more applications and better products. So it was interesting to see that.
So do you think, in terms of where Germany was in 2001, 2002, how ahead of the US were they at that time? I don't know how it compares now.
First, we shouldn't forget that the US was doing the first steps, I mean, with NASA and Northern
Good point.
California, they were buying a lot of solar just, to grow the wheat and stuff they needed. So they wanted to be off grid. So there was a kind of a big use of PV. So there was a little solar market before, but you're
Mm-hmm.
right. German solar market was probably 10 years ahead at that time. And that's why you saw all the bigger companies also moving into the US from Europe. I mean, from the Conergies to the racking manufacturers, Schletter, and you name it. They came over with the knowledge of volume, and trying to introduce their solutions, then combined with old solutions which still existed from this little market from back in the days. And yeah, but the one thing they didn't understand is how to overcome the engineering challenge. I mean, the typical thing for some German engineers is that they think whatever they do is perfect for each and every market, and they forget the marketing piece, and that they have to produce what the market needs and not what they think is super. And
That makes sense. It's the left brain scientists that are missing kind of that more soft science of it in
product
marketing.
market fit, right?
Yeah, interesting. So when did you actually make the move from Germany to the US?
Yeah, so I came 2006 in a totally different function as an operations manager for a bifolding door system company. So I did that until 2009. On a wall, you might have seen that Yankee Stadium, LeBron James, so very high end. But then a friend of mine and I we discussed, to start something together again. So we did an engineering company. And then while doing that, we were running into the solar industry again by accident, having a beer at an Oktoberfest. So very funny story.
It's a good place for a business idea to start.
Yeah, I mean, they were looking for a manufacturing plant in the US. Conergy subsidiary called Mounting Systems still exists in Europe. And so we found a place for them to manufacture. That was in West Sacramento. And don't forget 2008, everybody was looking for
Recession.
manufacturing, recession. We worked with the governor's office. Schwarzenegger was the governor back in the days.
Yep.
They wanted to get manufacturing. So we were able to find a place, hired the people, installed the machinery, and then the management came over and took over the plant. And they're like, okay, we have a great relationship, so we should work together. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you need? And they were looking for good installers. I'm not an installer, I'm an engineer. So how life is. One of our friends, he had all the licenses in residential solar, and so we asked him, hey, how about we work together here and see if we can help these guys? And so we did. We founded Sunstall in 2011 with the focus on ground mounts, bought the first pile driver, and then started to work on some of their projects. The next milestone was the solar highway in Oregon. Was kind of an ODOT, Department of Transportation project, 1.8 megawatts south of Portland. And because we did a great job, they asked us to come over to Delaware and help people out in Delaware. And so, step by step, we were able to establish ourselves. Then the first tracker in 2013 became the first ATI certified installer at a project in Albuquerque. And yeah.
And so on and so forth. So when did this new concept of vertical solar come in?
So, as we're always keeping an eye on what the Europeans are doing in terms of solar integration, new solar products, from the floating to agrivoltaics, we saw the vertical application, and we thought it's something which none of our friends in the industry is offering because they're so focused on their fixed hills and their trackers that this could be a nice niche market for us to actually have a product besides the service we're offering for a long time. And as we've done, and have seen probably 38 to 40 states from Hawaii to Massachusetts, we understand, what the challenges are. And therefore we thought, let's take a look at that. And as I mentioned before, just during the pandemic, we're in Park City, and we saw that there was a vertical system done by a construction company because they had built an underpass for Park City High, and they used that concept for the railing to funnel the students into an underpass where they used the power on site. And I thought, see, this is a nice application. The
Multifunctional.
Yes, and then I saw that some of my friends in Austria were just doing it themselves as a DIY fence application, and I thought, it's interesting that people are just doing it by themselves. And obviously, there are applications now on airports, in agrivoltaics. People are thinking about transportation along the highways, freeways, and so it just made sense that we are looking
So,
into that. Yeah.
yeah, well, I want to know, this was interesting in the conversation we had before. What problems is it solving besides energy? Because it's kind of checking a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the application, right? We, we were just putting an article together about canals as California is testing these bridge situations over canals to reduce evaporation. And there's a PhD candidate who is just writing his thesis about, how much impact a vertical system on the banks of a canal can have on the evaporation. Um, the he's saying, up to 61%, I think, reduction of evaporation. If it's going east-west, the modules can cast a shadow onto the water. And at the same time, because of the cooling, you have also a better efficiency. Again, another interesting application where multiple things are coming together. When you look at Frankfurt Airport, they wanted to protect a certain grass. At the same time, they didn't want the glare for the approaching pilots. So, I mean, you need to take a look at, what are the challenges? What are the challenges for a berry farmer when there's too much heat, too much evaporation, all the way to a farmer in New York or in the Midwest when they have issues with soiling or the, they need a windbreak because otherwise, the soil has been taken away. We have to look at, what are the challenges so that we can add basically another functionality to the system. So it's not just, I produce electrons, and yes, these electrons might not be as efficient as a vertical or as a fixed tilt or a tracker, but they offer some additional value.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I didn't know this, but it sounds like there's a lot more opportunity for customization than I would have realized.
Absolutely. I mean, just think outside the box. I was standing at the in Atlanta. There was the RE Plus like 2 years ago. We are in a brewery, and I'm just looking at the building next door, and I'm like, okay, it's a parking garage, and they're using concrete on the outside so that the cars are not driving out, right? But everything is open. I'm like, ha! If you would just use vertical solar everywhere, you would have electrons right there where later on you need the electrons for charging. It's even, today I can do that, for a relatively low cost to add that to a building. Not that we're getting into building integrated PV, not our business. I'm just saying, if you walk around with open eyes and you see the opportunities, and that's why we also called it a dream vertical, so that people just come up with their own ideas. What are the challenges? What can they enable with the power if they have it on site? Is it um, something like a cold storage on site for their produce? Or is it, to charge up the robots they need for, the ag work in the future? I mean, I don't know, because I don't understand
Because
all
you're
the
not in
business.
every single business. Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, it's so simple. Like, ask people what they need and let them teach you about their business, and then your offer is better. So that's
I mean, if you overcome the initial cost, right? I mean, we went to the Defense Tech in Salt Lake City this year, and
it's my
obviously,
home.
yeah, obviously, people will say that this is by far more expensive, and they're absolutely right. But, if you ask them, so what's the return of investment on your wooden fence? Then it's like, there is none.
There's none.
And
Exactly.
so I'm like, okay, but here I know that after 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, there's a return on investment. And by the way, I'm enabling myself with other things, So that's just a different approach and a different story, and you need to overcome that initial no, 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 that's not how we do it.
So, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest challenges. How do you help people, because once somebody's guard goes up, it's really hard to get them to stay open to the conversation.
I think it's and nobody wants to talk about that right now, the Tesla approach, right? But I mean, you start with the Roadster and then you go to the S and then you come down into the mass market. I mean, I think that's the marketing approach. We need some people who just believe in it, and we've seen them. When we did it in a winery here in the foothills of California, all the way to the Rutgers universities who are testing it, for cattle. So I think that's kind of the way, you need some people who just believe in the idea. They need to do it, and then you can prove the concept, you can share the data, and then, it starts multiplying. And I mean, in some other areas like Massachusetts, if you cannot develop solar on just county land because there are memoranda in place, but you could do it on agricultural land if you have both, so that you really produce something, blueberries for example, and you have a solar system on top, on the side. Then you might also be able to just get your development done. So I mean, we'll see that more and more, that people just have to do it because otherwise they won't get the permit.
Interesting. So, I mean, you guys are well established. So, what is it like now finding these new projects compared to 10 years ago? Like, are you still going after people? Are people coming to you?
I mean, on the installation business, obviously we have an established network and we're working with partners. And you will see tomorrow is going to be a press release about the 100th project with one customer and one product. So that is established, but obviously for the vertical, it's new. Everything is new. I mean, we were just talking about PhD studies, done from New York on effects and software on how to predict um, which produce is ideal for New York and then for California and then for Oregon. I mean, climates are different, situations are different, right? And the same is true for canals, and we will see more development on railroads and roads, and how can that be integrated? And there's more to come. I think if just imagine, you would have a vertical system, and then maybe you have like like an LED on top, and it would tell you that okay, there's free parking. I'm just coming up with
Yeah.
ideas, in
Yeah.
inner cities, I mean, so that you're not driving around, no, it shows you there's free parking and you can go in. I mean, all these kinds of things, might be enabled with if you have power. You need power in these places to then come up with also different business ideas.
That's a really good point. And that's a way you can, I mean, obviously the return on investment just in the power savings is one piece, but if you can add other business opportunities, I imagine that can help bring people over the line,
And and
like you
and
mentioned.
also we were just talking about, can I also print something on it so to use it as advertisement, thinking about wineries, an entrance. I mean, I want to have a nice entrance, right? Because I'm a prestigious winery. So okay, no problem. You build that fence and you just print on your logos and nobody will even know that you have a solar system in place there. And that might reduce it by 2, 3%, in production, but who cares? You're still producing something, and it's
Yeah.
and maybe the metal fence you had before is also very expensive, so maybe that's different.
Well, yeah, I mean, I imagine does it end up looking like high-end fencing?
Whatever you want to print on it. I mean, maybe you print the fence on it. I mean, I know that from the bifolding door systems, we were actually printing, I mean, powder coating on aluminum, and it looked like wood.
Oh, that's nice. I imagine there's a lot of application because I think a lot of people, depending on the business, like if you're doing it by the freeway and you're a farmer, you probably don't care how it looks, but like a winery, yeah, it's a branding issue.
I mean, we can powder coat those metal posts, no problem. I mean, obviously it's an expense question, but it
Yeah.
can be done.
Yeah. So, do you have like an ideal type of client that you'd want to have coming to you in droves, or is it like, it doesn't matter as long as there's a project?
I would love the agricultural piece of it, right? Because I believe that the farmers are struggling, with the change of the weather, whatever you call that, and then also farms are being handed over by the thousands, and the younger generation, they don't like necessarily to have an unsteady income. And if they can get an
That
income
sounds
piece,
funny
which,
to me.
yeah, but I mean, I didn't say
Like,
they
oh,
don't want
I'm
to work. No,
sorry.
no, they want to work, but they want to have they want to make sure that, okay, there is an income, it
Yeah.
makes sense. And it's just for fun and just keeping it because we had it for 200 years. No, it should also help the family and support the family, right? And therefore, if we can combine things and there is a steady income with the electrons, but at the same time it supports the rest of the farm. I mean, I had conversations with third, fourth generation farmers from the Midwest, and she was telling me that, okay, she can sell the land or lease the land for solar development each and every day, but she doesn't want to do that. She wants to use it as a farm still. She loves that income. Yeah, and she's not nicely situated next to a substation, so that's why everybody's knocking. Yeah,
Mm,
and it's also hard for her to find people which she can trust. But
yeah.
again, that there is the farming piece, and I think if we can support that, awesome. Why not combining things?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's very innovative. So, I mean, we can wrap it up pretty soon here, but if you could like fix any problems that you're struggling with right now, like with a magic wand, what would it be?
Yeah, I think to just get the word out, that we're working together, and I mean that also in regards to the oil industry and the solar industry. We need both. We need gas, we need oil, we need farming, we need all of the above. But and we need to work together and utilize the resources in the best way. Yeah, not just wasting them. So
Yeah.
we need oil for pharmaceutical products and for plastics and everything else. Burning it is maybe not the best idea. So, I mean, again, we need it all. And it shouldn't be just a fight against each other. It should be
And it
like
doesn't need to
together.
be enmity there. Yeah.
Let's utilize the resources in the best possible way for all the people.
Well, and it's like, I like what you said about figuring out what the problem is, coming together to solve the problem. Like, if we can do this collectively, like, nobody needs to be the bad guy. It's just like, what do you bring? What do you offer? Let's do this together. Right? That's
I'm a
hard though.
I'm a plastic engineer by trade. So I love plastics and I think they have a lot to offer, and that's an oil product. I get that.
Yeah.
But so there are other things we shouldn't do. We shouldn't throw plastics into the ocean or
Hmm.
microplastics. I get that. Um, but again, it's like
But
really
if you
looking
think
at
of the world without plastic, like that, there's a lot of problems. But like it's both ways. Like, yes, we need to be much more conscious about the way we use plastics, but like science and medicine and so much engineering wouldn't be possible without it. So it's that whole system's circular thinking that we need. So, yeah. All right. So, I mean, what's next? I mean, obviously working on vertical is probably going to be the focus, but what are you excited about in the coming year or two?
I think, let's see how the whole thing shakes out with all the the the
Yeah,
tr
is
the
anyone
the,
excited? I want to
the,
be excited, but
the trade questions. Yeah, I think the
yeah,
train is running for us. We are the cheapest technology to produce electrons, and this is not the end. We need more,
no,
more, more, and therefore we need to come up with more integrated solutions. We need to be closer to the load centers. The transmission problem will, continue, and it will take forever to get the transmission lines we want. So again, more integration is necessary, whether it's vertical, it's on the roofs. I mean, it's all of the above. And I think that's gonna happen in the next, 2, 3 years. And for us, I mean, obviously, my dad was working in big power plants, and I've worked in big power plants too. I mean, coal-fired and nuclear. And the one thing I think we saw in the beginning of the solar industry was that people were cutting corners. And
really.
because they thought, this is not a coal-fired power plants, and then the guys who were, doing the engineering, they just let them go. And we see the consequences now from all these installations from 10, 15 years ago, which are not working anymore. Good for us, bad for the industry, and we've learned from it, and today it's much, much better. And
That's good to
we
hear.
just need to apply the same rules and quality standards, of what we've seen in the standard power plants, the
Makes
old ones.
sense. All right. So if there's a farmer or a company that's interested in vertical, how do they get a hold of Sunstall?
Yeah, go to our website and just, either chat with our bot or send us an email.
Nice. Perfect. Well, thanks again for teaching me today and for this conversation, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Megan, for having us.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of Green Disruptors. If you're excited about the possibilities of vertical solar or want to explore how integrated solutions can help future-proof your operations, be sure to check out Sunstall's website. If you enjoyed today's conversation, as always, don't forget to subscribe and share the podcast with someone passionate about building a greener world. See you next time.